Welcome everyone. This is Plant Dude James, and I would like to introduce to you my very first plant, my Philodendron Ring of Fire. Now this baby here is blocking my face as always. It is so big. I love it. Um, Leaves are like 14 to 15 inches long. Oh. And as you can see, nice, beautiful variegation. Let's see if the camera can catch that. All right, look at that here. It's sprouted about 3 new leaves since I've gotten it, and it's got another one along the way. Hooray, hooray. Now, what do I use for soil? For soil, I've actually had this thing changed out maybe about 3 times. You can kind of see inside there. Anyway, so I have swapped out the soil a few times because this baby had been purchased at a big box store and it was soggy, had too much peat moss in the soil, and from further investigating I found out that there was a lot of pests, including spider mites. There was webbing, not just from spider mites but from also spiders, and underneath you could see they were crawling around. They were just being a menace to society, the society of my plant. But anyway, so first time around, I changed out the soil halfway, thinking that that would be okay. That was not the case. Second time around, I tried to change the whole thing. I didn't do a good job. I didn't rinse it out very well. The roots were still holding in some of the old soil. What I had done was finally decided to change out the soil completely, repot it into a different pot, and as a matter of fact I did downsize it because it was in a much larger pot than this. This right here is a 2-gallon pot. The pot that it was in was sort of decorative. It was plastic, but it was probably about this much wider, about this much deeper, and the root system on this plant was not very big. So as you can imagine, it was getting soggy. Fortunately, it didn't end up having root rot, but I was able to save this plant. Now, third time around, I changed out the soil. Complete change. I took it outside of my apartment, rinsed down the roots, every last bit gone. I rinsed down the plant from upside down, inside out, topsy-turvy. You know the deal. Just tried to get off every bit of spider mites because that was not the deal. If you look carefully here, you can actually see some of the damage. Let's see what I can show you. And let's see. You see a little bit of spotting here. All right, so the Philodendron Ring of Fire does have fragile leaves. Don't manhandle it. They will break easily. They can crack, which I have done on this one right here. A little bit hard to see from that distance. Now let's talk about this plant's normal care routine. Now I don't water it very often because I want the soil to dry out in between waterings, and that third time that I've changed out the soil, I did make it a lot chunkier. I did use a mixture of cactus soil. Cactus succulent soil does have a good perlite to soil ratio. I did add quite a bit of orchid bark. And on top of that, I did add a little bit of cocoa chips. Now, you don't want this plant to sit in moisture for too long because you don't want the root rot, right? And you also don't want fungus gnats, which I have encountered for a short period on this plant. And I would like to say that maybe last time I watered this plant was probably 3 weeks ago. And fortunately today, I'm going to water it because it's dry. And how do I know that it's dry? You can either stick your finger in the soil. Now that's a good trick. You can also get yourself one of these. This is called a moisture meter. Let's get that to, yep. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so what we do here is we probe the plant. And if you look carefully, it is down to the dry level. And we're going to go ahead and just give that baby some water. Right now it's about 85 degrees here in Hawaii, and it's about 50% humidity level where I'm at. And it is like summer. Summer, summer, summer. A lot of you guys out there are probably thinking it's Hawaii, it's summer all year long. No, there's some times where it gets pretty cold. Call me a sissy girl if you want, but I'm born and raised, and I'm just not used to the conditions. If I were to go to the mainland, I would die. So let's go ahead and get our fertilizer. Bring in our water can. Let that mix in. Okay. Now, as usual, I always do this to my plants. I water thoroughly through all in all, the roots. Wait till it drains out the bottom because you want to get it in there. You want to make sure that all the nutrients from this gets deep down to all the roots. You don't want to just water like a little bit here and there because the plant needs to grow. Nice, look at that drainage. Almost immediately. Give it a nice, thorough water. Don't forget to let that soak through. Drain out the bottom. Place it back in its respective pot. Well, it's not exactly a pot that it sits in, but it's a decorative bowl. Now this pot is kind of flat. I did drill some holes at the bottom. This here is flat too, so I added some chopsticks to let it sit a little bit higher so that it can air. Now these philodendrons are crawlers. If you look at the way that it grows nice and slow off to the side. Very nice and tight internodal spacing. Some aerial roots here and there. Because of that tight internodal spacing, propagation is very hard. You may fail due to that. Now I did mention that it is a crawler, but in some cases you can put this on a moss pole and it will give it its own characteristics. But I used to have this on a moss pole, if you guys have seen on Instagram. But what I did was reverted it back. One, because of the soil and because of the pests. And two, because I kind of missed having the way that it looked naturally. Which is why I have it back to the way it is. It's called a Ring of Fire because it spreads out wide like a ring. And why ring of fire? Because when it's growing, if you look carefully at new leaves, they do have some redding on them, which I do have one to show you. This is the baby ring of fire. And if you look right here, it's got nice red showing up on that tip of the leaf. Now, because this plant was so favorited to me when I first got into plants, I had to get a second one. Now it's a little bit overwhelming knowing that I had bought a second one, and unfortunately the spider mites that was here did end up on here. And from what I've learned is that these plants can be susceptible to spider mites, and as opposed to other philodendrons that I currently own and other plants in general, these ones were the ones that had taken the most heat. It is easy to mistake those drops on the bottom of the leaves for spider mites. Well, spider mite eggs, but don't be alarmed. That's just a form of guttation that happens at the bottom of the leaves for these plants. It might have a little sticky sap-like feel. If you do touch it, make sure you wash your hands carefully. You can use gloves when you work on plants. It's okay. If you guys have any more questions about the Philodendron Ring of Fire, I'm more than happy to answer them. And all in all, I really appreciate you guys all being here. Thanks again. This is Plant Dude James. See you guys later.